Hey everyone, welcome back. So in the last video, I've explained what is the issue when I was trying to create this page object model video, and I have raised a like the bug in the WebDriver official website. You can just go and check the previous video. In this video, we are going ahead with the page object model with a slight alternate options, and then later once we get the fix, we'll update it. Yeah. So before starting, we need to understand what is page object. Now, before going there, let's go to our code and look what we have written. So these are the code that we have written. And if you see, we have so many things written in the code. It looks a bit clumsy because we have so many details available. These are the page locators. When we are writing actual test automation, we needed to expose this to any user who is using this. Instead, our test should only talk about the action that it is performing and the validation. Extra informations, whatever you have, you can encapsulate in somewhere else. For example, these locator details, because these are just used to perform action, and that you can do in anywhere, and so that you can read your test more readable. So that you can make your test more readable and easily maintainable, right? So that is why we are going to move all the objects or the element locators in some other classes. And there are different design patterns to achieve that, but widely used one of that is page object model. Now let's see what is page object model. So it's a design pattern that is used in test automation to create a UI element object repository and related action method. So what we do, we create a class, we write all the element locators. So how we maintain is basically for each page in the website, you create one class. It might vary based on the approach, but usually that's a typical way. For one page, web page, one class, and in that, all the related UI elements you are going to interact with, you write all the locators in that, and related action method. Again, we are going to see from the code. There are a few practices that we need to keep in mind. You have to keep your class and the file name very meaningful, so that it gives the vibe, or it tells you what exactly it is about. You need then keep only locators and related action methods. No need to keep any assertions and all in the page classes. Also, we need to be very careful while giving access specifier, because we need not to make all the action methods or the locators public or default. First, try to make it private if you are not using that inside any other class. If you are going to use any action methods or locator in the test or any other class, then only keep it public or default. Other than, keep it private. Keep it descriptive and meaningful for all the locators. Yes, so your action method should be very meaningful, that you need not to have to write any extra comment that what is trying to do. Your name of that function should be meaningful, that this is what it is going to do. And one sample will be, this is how your page class should look like. You will have a class keyword followed by the class name, a meaningful name. For example, this is an example of a login page. So I created a login page name. If you are using inheritance, you have a parent class where you have certain actions, you can extend that parent class. So you need to import that parent class first and use extends keyword to extend the parent class. Write locator, and here all the locators are written in private. This is a public action method where it is trying to perform a login with a username and a password as an input string. And there is another public method which is opening, that means open the app. Now, when you are creating this, you need to export this by default export, so that you don't have to create a new instance when you are calling this function or importing it. So you just export it in the same class itself, and this is how you should export: default new, and then the same as class name, whatever you have, with a bracket at the end of this class. Yeah, now let's get into code. So this is the code we have, and there's already by default created one test class when we have done the setup, and the related page objects are already written. So let's have a look. See, when you read this, it's very readable, because what you're trying to do, login page.open, it is opening the login page. You're performing a login with the username and password, and then validating some assertion it is doing, right? And their assertion, action method. So this is the locator written, this is the locator, and this is the related action method written. And similarly for this also, this is a locator has been written. Now, if you notice, all the locators, wherever it is written, it is using public, get, and then the locator name, what you want to give the name. So public means you're going to use that in your test. If you're not going to use it, make it private. And then get is the keyword to make it getter. So this is nothing but a getter, and getter always should have a return statement. If you remove this return, it will give you error. A get accessor must return a value. So you should have a return statement always. So public or private, get keyword, the name of that locator, small open and close bracket, then curly bracket open and close. Inside that you have to say return and the locator. Now when you are writing you're returning a single element or find element, you have to use dollar, and inside that your locator. This is a CSS locator using ID. Similarly for this, and then this it is a bit. Let's now create our own page class. So for this source demo login page, we have few locators written here. Let's create one class in the page object folder itself. So I'll say source.login.page.ts, right? And this is a little big name. You can simply say login.page because I already have a login page. I'm just trying to differentiate here. So the format of we need to create a class. So class keyword source login page. If you want to extend to parent, you have to say extends, and the parent class name is page because this is the parent class and it is automatically suggesting. So I'll select it, open and close curly bracket. Outside of this, we need to export it. So export default new and the class name, so that you don't have to create a new instance every time when you import again and again in the test classes. You just do it once, only one here. Now here you need to write your all the locators and action method. So how you'll write? Private get and then the function name. What locators we are going to write? So we have username, password, and login. But let's copy this so that I don't have to navigate back here. Just for reference, I'm keeping it here. Let me comment it out. So get username and then curly bracket open close return, and then this is the locator for the username which we have written in our test. So I'm writing this. Similarly, private get password and then return, and the locator is this space. Private get login button and then return, the locator is this. So when this is a button, we said login button. So for username, you can say username input, or username you can say text box. What it is, input box, right? Let's say text box itself. You can name however you like, but keep it meaningful. It should give you that what it is the locator about. Now because this is one single return statement, I like to keep it in single line. So you can write in like this, or you can write in the same line itself like this here. Either is same thing, so you don't have to keep on writing in the new line. I'm just trying to save a few lines, right? And let me format it, and let me do extra line spaces as well. So this is your locator now. So page object, you should have a locator and then related action methods, right? So for related action method, now what do you want to perform here? We are performing, if you go to source log, we are performing a login here, right? So let's create a method called login. Now, because we are going to use that login class in other page test class, we can create it public, and then we can say simply async, because any functions you are going to create which you are dealing with the locators, any WebdriverIO methods or functions, you have to use async and await because everything is asynchronous now. And then login, or I can say perform login. This login expect username and password too as an input parameter, because when you are calling this function, now another thing you need to keep in mind, we don't pass the actual test data directly in the PH class. So when you are performing a login, you require username and password. So we don't feed that username and password hardcode directly here, how we have written here, right? We have a username and password. Similarly, not going to write directly. We'll call this function, and whatever from calling function, whatever data we pass, this should accept here. Now this in the TypeScript, you can define the type of parameter. So you have to say colon and then type whatever. So this is very specific to TypeScript. If you're using JavaScript, this you can avoid writing colon and defining the type. Now you need to perform. First, you have to enter username in this, enter password, and click on this. So if you want to perform anything enter, we can use set value as you have already discussed in the previous video, but we have to say await. Now if you want to access this locator, you have to say this keyword dot and this locator. So if you see auto suggestions are coming, I'll select this username text box dot set value. As soon as you say set value, automatically multiple awaits get added. You can remove this. This is an issue because of the changes that happen asynchronous, which in future you might get fixed, and then auto suggestion. When auto suggestion, you might not get multiple await. But make sure you're writing one await. That is enough. You don't. And whatever username you're calling from the function, that will be passed here. Similarly, await this dot password text box dot set value. And then here password, whatever you're passing from the calling function. Remove multiple await. So we have entering username, password, and then we have to perform click. So await this dot, what is the locator for login button? This is the locator. Then you have to say click and bracket. So it will set username, set password, and perform click. And whatever the username you are passing from the calling function, that's what it will pass. So we have created this function. Now let's call this, because we don't want to use this directly in the locator. Now let's remove this deleted one. So now it is more clean. It has 3 locator, username, password, login button. It has one public method. Now you need not to give public. You can remove this. So by default, the access modifier will be default, which is still accessible in other test classes when you import it. So you can remove skip writing public. Now let's go to our test. So first thing we have to do is we have to import the page class. And if you want to take the reference, right, if you go to this E2E page, they have imported here, right, by default. Similar way, you can import it here. Import source. See, as soon as I'm typing, it is giving me auto suggestion. So you can select it whichever you want. I want source login page and click enter. By default, it will say the class name. It has .ts. It did not add .ts because this is how import should be. But because there is an issue when you run this, it will give a failure. So for time being, just add at the end .js. This is because there is an issue with the WebdriverIO, which I have raised the defect. If you want to know, watch my previous video where I have explained it. But once that issue is fixed, so currently I'm on version 8.0.13. So when you get later version, when you're working later, you're watching this video later, this might not be the case, and you might not have to, you can skip writing. Okay, we are importing in the wrong class, not here, not in this, but in this page. So import source login page and just add .js. So when you are following this video, that time you might not have to write .js because this is an issue currently. Just as a workaround, I am writing this .js, but in future it should be until the name itself, .page itself. We do not have to write .js or .ts. For timing, let's use this. Now we don't need these at all. Let's comment it out. We don't need even these functions. Let's comment it out. All we need is we have created already a perform login method, right? So using this name, you can give any name here, anything, and it will still accept, but it should be meaningful. So I'll give source login page. So I have to say await source login page. And as soon as you click on dot, you'll get auto suggestion to, methods available. Now, if you notice here, we have open and perform login, 2 methods. Perform login we have created. You know that we have created a perform login. But why there is one more function called open, where it is coming from, that we need to understand. So if you go to login page, we have extended a parent class. And if you go to this parent class, there is one method called open. So because we have extended this class, the same method is applicable to all other test classes as well. And reason because this is a public method. So because it is a public method, it is accessible in this class as well. So that is why we have 2 methods, right? Open, but we need to use perform login. We have to provide you. So if you hover your mouse, it expect username as a string, password as a string. We have username as a string here. So you'll pass, comma, and then password. Right? That's it. Instead of all these lines, now one line is enough. So let's delete all these. Okay, now this locator also, let's move it to the page class. We don't want to keep this. So source login, create one more. Now I'm not going to create here this time private. I'll directly say log get first. Okay, let me copy whatever. I'll say get the locator name, round bracket, curly bracket, return, and whatever locator we have. This is the locator we have. Copy paste it inside here and delete this. Now why I have not make this as a private? Because I'm going to use this in my test class. Okay, I need this for a session. So let's delete this now, and you'll get error. So you have to say source login page dot, and then this particular locator will be accessible. Now one thing, whenever you are writing this locator, right, with a getter, and when you are accessing that, you don't have to give this as a small bracket. Okay, but when you have a function, something like this login, so this is the method, this is a getter, but this is a normal method, right? So if you have this kind of method, then when you're calling that in your function, you need to provide a bracket. But when you're calling a getter, you don't have to provide a bracket. Be careful and be mindful about that. So now we have moved this. Similarly, we have a username. And what else we have? So we have a username. So username also, we are using this same username. So let's make it public, not private. And if you go here, you can delete this. And we have to say here first, source login page dot username text box, and you can delete this. So let's copy this too, and wherever we have error, paste this place, this place, this place, this place. We have few locators here as well. Let's copy this locator as well. This is a user header. Now this, okay, this is also in the login page, so let's keep it here itself. I'm going to change this as a get, remove equal to, curly bracket, return statement, and close return here, and user header. So now go delete this locator. How we can access that? Source login page dot, and then user header. Done. Similarly here as well. We have a locator. This locator also. Let's move it to page class. And get bracket, remove equal to, return, and close. Format is always same. Get keyword, if it is a private, make it private. Locator name with a bracket, then curly bracket, open and close, return a statement, and your locator. Now let's go again to test. Let's delete this. You'll get error, so you have to say source login page. If you want to access any locator, you have to say this name, imported name, and then with that the locator name. And so we have removed all the locators. Now one more thing, I see this is still look clumsy, and we are going to clean it later when we are enhancing our framework in the later videos. But for now, our agenda is to remove all the locators from the page and make it less noisy. Another thing you see here, user, this is opening the URL, maximizing the window. This might be useful again in other classes when we are looking at the different test cases. So what we can do is, and if you see here in elementals, okay, element we are not doing, but in source login. So let's move this also in the page class. So go to source login page, create one function called async open app, and then just paste whatever you have here. Copy this, paste it here. Now let's, instead of writing this line completely, this two line, I'm going to delete everything. I'll say await source login page dot open app. Now this looks more readable. So we have moved our few action methods. So these are your locators, and these are the action methods, related action. So we want to perform opening the app, and opening the URL and then maximizing the window also. Then we have a performing a login action method. This is also we have written, and locator. So we have written only two things. One is element locators, another is related action methods, nothing else. And you'll notice we have assertion directly in the test class. We need not to write assertion in the page class. We should not be writing it. So with this, yes, it's done. Let's try to run and see whether it's working fine. So I'm going to run only this test case. I'll just So let's try to run npm run wdio, and it should still work fine. Okay, we're getting some error. Let's see. Okay, this is the same error. Okay, so got the issue. It was failing here. Reason because we have added .js here, but if you go to the page class, we have imported one more page, and that is the base page, right? The parent page. Here also you have to, it was .js as not added, so you have to say .js. Again, these all are for time being until we get the issue fixed in the latest version when you're using. So just keep an eye whenever you're writing your code and watching the video, try without writing .js. If it works fine, it's well and good. And then if it is not, just add that JS, and then we'll keep track of the issue that we have raised, that where it is. So now I've updated this one .js as well in my page class also. Now let's try to run this and see whether it's working fine or not. And yes, see, it has passed. It is working fine, perfectly fine. There is no issue with this at all. We are not able to see execution. Let's see. So it's opened. It clicked, and it is a little quick, and that's why it is passing. But if you really want to have a look, right, you can just add await browser.pause for 5 seconds, and then we can wait for 5 seconds for the execution to complete. So we'll be able to see all the steps. So see, it is doing all the sessions, then waiting for the 5 seconds, and then it's going to close it. And see, so it waited for that, and then it closed. So yeah, I just wanted to show you how we can write our element locators or the page objects, how we can create, what is the standards that we need to follow. And we are going to do further enhancement in the code, because we don't write the code this clumsy or not in this way. For example, we are writing the data. This is the username and password. This is the config data or the test data. We need not to maintain here in the test class, rather than you can keep in some JSON file other classes and then read from there, so that in future, if your test data changes, you can change the class, not in the test. So when you're writing a test, you write in a way that it is less changeable with the code changes or application changes. So for example, if your locator changes, make changes in the page class, not in your test class. When your test data changes, change in the test data source, not in your actual test. So that's how we are going to improve slowly as we progress in the video. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much.